The plan we see here on the right hand side is my idea of how we can solve this task. And if we take a look, we can see that it has two functions, but let's start talking about the main function. Here we can see that the first bit is kind of the same two times. What we do is that we display person 1, then we ask for the first person's interests. Then we display person 2 and ask for that person's interests. And when we ask for them, we use this second function here that we're going to talk about in a second. But when we have collected the two persons' interests, what we do is that we try to find the interests that they have in common and we display them. So alright, that is my plan for what we need to do here. And this part here is maybe not too clear what I mean by find all interests in common. My idea here is that we can use intersection. So if we have two sets, we can do the intersection, meaning that we pick out the things that both sets have in common. So the element or elements that exist in both the sets. And we're going to use that to find the interest in common. So that is the main function. And if we look at ask for interests, what we see here is that, alright, we create an empty set, then we have a loop. As long as there are more interests, my idea is that we ask for a new interest, we add that interest to the set. And we keep going around here until there are no more interests that we want to register. What we do then is that we return back. So how are we going to solve this? My idea is that, alright, if we input an empty line, that means that there are no more interests. But let's get started with the implementation of the main function. So I'll create the script and I'll write a little bit of code for the main function. And if we stop here, we can see what I've done so far is that I've created the main function and I've added these 4 steps here where we display person 1 and we ask for their interest and we store that in a variable. And we do that for both persons, and we can see that I have added a skeleton for this function ask for interest. I haven't added any code yet. I just know that we're going to use it, so I've put it here in the meantime. And then after that I have also printed the interest that they have in common, so we are going to display them here. But how are we going to do that? I said that we can use intersection. So I think what I will do is that I will use a loop that goes over the intersection between these two sets. So I combine it into one thing, a loop that loops over the intersection. And how would that look in code? It will look something like this, where we have a for loop. And what are we looping over? Well, we look here, we take the first set called person 1 and we try to find the intersection with the second set called person 2, meaning that we will try to find all elements that exist in both these two sets. And we loop over that intersection and we print each and every interest that is in common there. So, alright, we have the main function here. Now let's try to write the ask for interest function. If we compare the code that we have here to what we can see in our plan, we can see that, alright, the first thing that we do is we create the function and then we create an empty set. And we can see that we do that up here, that we create an empty set. And after that, it's time for the loop. And I use this variable more inputs to keep track of if we want to loop any more. And here is just some information so that the user knows what to input. We can see that, all right, it's not in the plan, but when writing the code, I realized, all right, I need some information so the user knows what to do. So we print that, and after that, we start reading the interests. So we can input something, it's stored in answer. If answer is not empty, we will add it to the set. Otherwise, if it is empty, we will just say that, all right, there are no more inputs. We are done with registering our interests. So that is the loop, and after we have registered all our interests, we return them back to wherever we called it from. And in our case, it is in the main function that we call ask for interest. And it's stored in person 1 and person 2. All right, let's try to run it and see if it works. So for person 1, our interests are computers, cars, and flowers. And now an empty line, right? We jump out of this loop, meaning that we are back in the main function printing person 2 and now asking for the second person's interests. Right, this person has the interests volleyball and maybe also computers and flowers. And we can see, all right, we exit this loop, jump back into our main function, and we print the things that they have in common. We print the elements that exists in both this set and this set. And working with sets and trying to find what they have in common, it's something that is fairly common that we need to do, so it's a good skill to remember, but also remembering that sets exist, because sometimes we want to find the information that is in one set but not in the other. So working with sets is definitely something that we should keep in mind and remember for the future.